Let us know when you're ready. Okay, good evening. My name is Amy Ritterbush, and I'm going to call the Select Board meeting for January 31st, 2023 to order. And all the Select Board members are present in the room tonight. Irfan is not going to be able to join us. Okay, so we don't have to do the roll call votes. So all members are participating, present in the meeting room. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in the meeting's agenda. Our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And the Select Board will now consider the following consent agenda to accept a gift of $30 from Rebecca Gaffney to the Hopkinton Public Library to be used for the purchase of books in the memory of her friend Cheryl Walker.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as written with thanks to Rebecca Gaffney. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Okay, the next item on the agenda is a new employee appointment. The Select Board will consider confirming the town manager's appointment of Beryl Wagner as the procurement and grants manager. So just go ahead.
Okay. Through the chair, I would like to request respectfully that the board affirm the appointment of Beryl Wagner as the town's next procurement and grants manager. She will be replacing Shivani Raval, who left for the private sector. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the HR department, Maria Casey, Christine, and Jessica, together with Liz Rook, the senior accounting manager, Chief Miller, John Westerlin, Dave Del Torio, Amy Beck, as our staff persons who participated in the different interview panels. I am recommending Beryl to this position because of what we learned through the interview process as well as what we heard from the references. She's an individual who makes people feel heard. This is a very important aspect of this position whereby she will be talking with board members and senior leaders, other town departments who would be applying for grants or going through the procurement process. Excellent customer service, resourceful, motivated, productive, and a very keen problem solver. And also, given her past experience working for Public Works, we believe she's the right person to help us with the spend control measures that come along with this position. Speaking to her earlier today, she's told me about how excited she is to be getting back to her profession. Also, you should know she's a candidate for an MBA degree, graduating possibly in 2024.
Okay, well that's great. Well, welcome to the town. We're happy to meet you, and we looked through your resume, and looks like you worked in Steamboat Springs, Colorado for a while, so that's where you did public service. Okay, great. All right, does anyone have any questions?
So tell us a little bit about what you're excited about in this role for Hopkinton in particular.
So I grew up in Hopkinton.
I know.
So to be back here and to have the opportunity to be part of a team that influences the progress of the town was really what drove me to constantly check the HR page.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really excited after, seeing the change in the town in 30 years, seeing the progress, seeing it diversify and move forward. I'm really excited to be a part of that.
It's terrific. And what part of grant writing motivates you the most, and procurement, the whole world that you're going to be in?
Just all of it, honestly. I love working with different entities and big projects, small projects, and helping people understand their role in helping projects come to fruition and helping new opportunities come to different municipalities.
Wonderful. Well, welcome home.
Thanks.
Good to have you here. I also want to just make one quick comment. I really appreciate every time we hear about all the ways that all the departments and department heads lean in and make this hiring process such a rich experience and so successful for the town.
Thank you. Through the chair, it's a practice that has been chaperoned and championed by the HR team.
I really appreciate it every single time.
Yeah, and it's nice for the public to get to know you too, because they can watch the video. Yeah, good. Okay, Mary Jo?
Through the chair, I just want to welcome you back to Hopkinton.
Thank you.
And I want to say during procurements and grants, I hope you are busier and have more work than you can possibly handle, because we certainly need some grants and some help with our budgets in the future, right now and in the future. So we welcome you.
Thank you. I am so excited. I can't stop smiling.
Well, that's great.
I just want to thank you for coming back and choosing your hometown for your next step in career. Wish you all the best. You have wonderful experience and expertise, and your education, everything combined, you're going to be a great asset for the town.
Thank you. I'm really excited to use what I've learned and also to learn new information, have it be a different, different team, a different municipality, even a different part of the country. I'm really excited for everything. I need to. Can't stop smiling.
Welcome.
Okay.
So with that, does someone want to make a motion?
So,
Go ahead.
You did.
make a motion that we accept confirm the town manager's appointment of Beryl Wagner as the procurement and grants manager for the town.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain?
I hope this is in order. Say hi to your mom.
All right, so then, this is unusual, but. This is earlier on agenda than usual. We have liaison reports and board invites.
The only invite that I know of is the Eagle Award ceremony that is on my calendar, and I'm happy to do that.
Yep.
I talked to Tom Pratt, and he said everything is fine at the cemeteries, and that he'll call me if he needs anything. I said, oh, okay, fine.
Okay.
There's a packed schedule for ESBC too.
Yes, that's a good
Tonight
reminder.
Their meeting, and there's a big decision coming in the next few weeks. It'll come to us on 28th. I think Norman shared the schedule.
Yep,
So-
I think we have that in the email.
The committee is voting on the side on the 14th, and we are on the 28th.
Okay. And Norman did send us more information. Muriel, you had some questions last time. I don't know if those will help you.
I'm sorry.
On the ESPC too, I think
Yes.
Norman Arlene sent us more information on
Yeah,
that.
and I also have it on, I was just writing myself a note. There's a meeting, and I want to make sure I watch, that I didn't watch when it was playing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was gonna
you'll
say-
find a lot of analysis on the sites and comparison on the website too,
Yep.
and meeting,
I just
during the meetings itself.
want to, on behalf of the assessors and the town, to remind people that this is the time of year to get in your 41C applications or your applications for tax relief from the tax
Oh,
relief
yes.
fund. It's right now. You get them in.
Yeah, a press release went out recently with the instructions on how to do that, I think. So people should take advantage.
Clause 41-2 has to be in 30 days.
Yeah. And then I wanted to correct myself, Muriel. At the last meeting, you were correct that there is something about the Hopkins School on the warrant this year.
Yeah.
I had missed that, so, okay. Okay, I don't think I have any board liaison reports, because we just met last week, so I think anything I had, I mentioned last week, so. Okay, so I think we're done with liaison reports. Okay, and then now it's time for the public forum. Okay, so please note that each person who would like to speak will have up to 2 minutes to speak at the public forum. Please start by stating your name and address, and we will go to the people in the room first, and then anyone who's on Zoom. And if there's anyone on Zoom, they should raise their hand. So is there anyone in the room that would like to speak? Okay, come forward to the table, please.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Donahue. I live at 15 Pike Street, and if I could just defer just for a moment. Whenever I scramble to get here for a meeting, it gives me great respect for those of you who do this to conduct business of our town. Thank you. So what I'm here to speak about is something that's on the agenda a little bit later on in terms of warrant article proposal for the town meeting. And it's about short-term rental of residential property, which is something I would have never imagined I would be vested in and speaking about until our neighborhood had a really alarming experience within the last year or two, where a house that had been owned for, I'm told, over 50 years by a gentleman who raised his family there. He then passed away and his estate sold the house. And it was bought up, by someone who does not live in Hopkinton, and it became a short-term rental after some renovations were done. Of course, like, we didn't know what the renovations were that are going on, but it showed up on Airbnb with a number of compounding issues, including in our single-family zoned area, the owner had turned it into 2 units. It was listed as 2 units with 2 kind of kitchen areas, so certainly looking like 2 units. Building permits were not pulled, so work was done out of compliance. There were a number of issues, I don't even know what all. And so we were left, the impact on us in our neighborhood was that there was essentially an unregulated hotel-type occupancy going on in our quiet little family-friendly neighborhood. And even though the situation has resolved through, I think, a number of the professionals here in Town Hall have worked on that property at 8 Pike Street, it's resolved. It's now in like a normal or more usual rental situation. We on Pike Street realized this is something that we could raise an alarm, that this could happen anywhere in town. And our town, in my time here in Hopkinton for 20 plus years, I think I remember 2 occasions where we voted down hotel zoning in some kind of office park areas, yet here we had hotel type occupancy without professional management happening right in our area. We had trash overflowing, there were parties that was rented for single usage. So this proposal is, it just puts some guardrails on it. It allows people to do short-term rental. We know people rent rooms around the marathon and so on, but it puts some guardrails on it by requiring registration of short-term rental properties, putting a minimum of 2 nights on it to discourage the rent it for a party type of scenario that can happen. And there are checks if things are happening, like the trash blowing around the street that we had, the half-eaten pizza out on the curb that we were seeing. There's recourse for some of that, which had the current owner, who, by the way, owns 6 properties, including a very large house in Sherburne that he Airbnbs. This can happen anywhere. Had he not been in such extensive violation of codes, we wouldn't have had a lot of recourse. If it shows up on Falcon Ridge Drive, Blueberry Lane, you name it, there's very little recourse in the current situation. So we are proposing this, having gone through our experience, and we believe that Hopkinton should be proactive on this. So we'd like to see these regulations that are included in your packet put in as a bylaw, or put up to town meeting to be considered for a bylaw to be added to Hopkinton's bylaws.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Oh, I don't know if I should correct this. But we did vote to allow hotels in Hopkinton, and just no hotel has ever wanted to come to Hopkinton. Okay, did anyone else want to speak in public comment that's in the room? Yep.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Kamalo, members of the board, Pat O'Brien, 13 Ray Street. Madam Chair, we've been discussing for the past 2 months the rec center, and we're kind of rehashing a lot of the same issues that are going back and forth. But one thing I think that's so vitally important that really hasn't been brought out public is the impact that taking the dispatches out of the police station will have on the police department. In the 90s, a woman was home alone in her house. An intruder broke in, tied up her hands, put her in the bedroom, told her not to move. A second female came home He took a blanket, put it over her head, told her to sit on the floor and not to move. You could imagine the fear that was in those two women. They didn't know if they were going to get killed. They didn't know if they were going to get assaulted. They listened to this man walk around the house, and they were petrified. Finally, after a period of time, when they stopped hearing the man walking, they had enough courage to take the blanket off, come out of the room, call the police department. Officers went down. They had no idea who the perpetrator was. The only thing that the women could tell them was the male, and he had a very distinguishable tattoo on his forearm. Months went by. They have no idea who committed that crime. One evening, the dispatcher, Rob McFetrich, doing his job that the Hopkins police dispatchers do, were reading teletype messages that were sent out by other towns. A town in Rhode Island, not even Massachusetts, Rhode Island, sent out a message that stated that they just arrested a guy for committing a similar crime, and that suspect had a distinguishable tattoo on his forearm. Officer McFetrich, because he's doing his job that dispatchers do in Hopkinton, knew about the tattoo, forwarded that information to Detective Wallace. Detective Wallace went down to a correctional facility in Rhode Island, interviewed the man, did his investigation, determined that that was the man who broke into the house in Hopkinton. Imagine the relief on those ladies when Detective Wallace went back and told them that he can no longer live in fear, that the person that broke into their house, the person that committed this heinous crime, could no longer come back and hurt them. Madam Chair, I would say that this case probably would not have been solved without the diligent work of the Hopkins dispatcher, Rob McFetrich. And I would also say that if those dispatchers were in Westboro, that probably never would have taken place. I urge you that until we get a plan to staff the police station to an adequate level that the residents would be comfortable with, that the police officers would be comfortable with, that we don't move forward to the rec center until those issues are taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak at public comment? No. Okay, there are 3 people on Zoom. First we have Carol Essler, if we could liven her up. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I want to thank the members of this board who expressed some reservations concerning the idea of putting poisonous herbicides in Lake Maspinock. I think there's many reasons to have reservations. I've been involved in this for quite a while, gone to quite a few meetings about it. Back in 2015, the town voted down that idea by a 2/3 majority. And at that same meeting, they created the Weed Committee. I'm not sure at that meeting how they gave that Weed Committee power or what power that committee has. They have indeed worked very hard, and they are all very pro-herbicide. And I have many reservations. One of the reservations is concerning a chemical called Diquat, which is proposed for use in our lake. It is banned in dozens of countries throughout the world, including the entire European Union. Everything you read about it states that it needs further study, in particular about its relationship to bringing on Parkinson's disease. Much further study needed and banned in many, many places. I would like to see us not poison our lake, and I've stated that for a long time. But this particular chemical is one that we need to look at. The plan involves many things, to the drawdown which we've been doing, which may need to go at a different time with climate changes going on. But there is also benthic barriers, hand pulling, and dredging, none of which have actually been used. In our swimming area, I live in the upper basin, and I swim many, many times a week. We have hand-pulled our area. And if 2 70-year-old people can hand-pull their swimming area, I assure you it's not too hard. we have not experienced the weeds as anything more than a nuisance at the end of the season. And I would encourage this board and any further going forward to look very seriously at the proposed chemicals. We know the EPA has been wrong about everything from DDT to Roundup. And to do this to our lake is just, I think, wrong-headed and needs to be looked at. And I know I've said it before, and I will say it again. Many of also the herbicides have PFAS in them, and we're already having problems with PFAS. I think the Pro-Herbicide Weed Committee needs a little more supervision. And I do respect that they've done a lot of work, but there are a lot of us in town who feel very differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarity, let's see, the weed committee itself makes recommendations only, they don't make decisions, is that correct?
They provide recommendations to the DPW director.
Okay, but the decision on whether or not to use herbicides, I believe, is the Conservation Commission?
It's made by the DPW director consistent with the requirements of the town, which may entail review and approval by the Conservation Commission and a consensus discussion by the Select Board.
Okay, so another committee for people to talk to would be Conservation Commission or to talk to the DPW director, I presume?
Yes, and also the Select Board.
And the Select Board, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, we have two more people with their hands up. Darlene Hayes.
Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Darlene Hayes, 1/3 Road. I'm just calling in very briefly. I was able to watch the video of the Cumberland Farms attorney last week and just wanted to respond. He made a lot of comments about like the town not responding. I want to make sure that it's clarified that as much as I've been advocating for 3+ years for there to be some sort of solution for safety at Cumberland Farms, Cumberland Farms was CC'd on all those emails I've been sending you guys. And I counted 17 times that I emailed Cumberland Farms and had no response. And probably about 9 times that I actually left voicemails for someone at Cumberland Farms with no response. And I appreciate the town standing up and putting this out to bid to get this rectified and help out the safety situation there. That was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to apologize. I had COVID about 3 weeks ago, but I still have a cough. So I'm not contagious, but I'm going to take a cough drop. Okay, and then we also have Dan Bennett with his hand up.
Hi, and can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Madam Chair, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here with respect to agenda item 8, which is regarding placing the short-term rental bylaw on the warrant article, the warrant for this annual town meeting. The letter that the Pike Street residents, I will let that speak for itself, describes the details and issues that we had, but I did want to highlight some of the larger issues that we faced that were a real negative impact on our neighborhood. We had early morning arrivals, we had late night departures, doors slamming, trunks closing, cars driving up and down the street trying to find, the actual location of the property. The trash was not handled properly. By licensing and regulating, these uses, I think would give residents a place to go and a place to call and someone to at least take some sort of action when these STRs, I'll call them, get out of hand. I did reach out to the DOR, who oversees them for these registrations for the state, and Hopkinton has 10 registered short-term rentals. An earlier conversation I had with the staff person at the building department, they thought they had only one. So we have 10 of these, and I'm going to guess there are a lot of businesses in town that we have 10 or more that are regulated in some way or some fashion, and I would like to see that, the town at least place this on the warrant article to allow this to be voted at town meeting. Other than the Pike Street letter, I didn't see anything else in the meeting packet that anyone else was speaking to not having this go in front of the town meeting. So, what I would request is that this elected 5-member board not prevent this article from being discussed and voted on by all residents in the town of Hopkinton at the annual town meeting. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised on Zoom. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, so then I think we're done with public comment for tonight. Okay, next we will have our FY24 budget and capital hearings. Is that time for a certain time, or we can start it even though it's not 6:40?
Yes, I believe the board can proceed.
Okay. Okay, so tonight we're going to hear from the police department, fire department, and the communications department, and the engineering facilities department. So I guess we'll let Mr. Khumalo begin, or if you can call it up.
Yes, police department, Chief Bennett.
Through the chair, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening to discuss the proposed budget for the police department. Building the police department budget, really you build it from the ground up. You start with your essentials, your salaries, your collective bargaining agreements, and then work on to your needs. That's what I've done through in that exercise, and the budget before you comes out of that process. The vast majority of the budget is in our personnel. They're our best assets, and they're also the most expensive. My presentation tonight kind of is built on the premise of our vision. Everyone always. We try to build a police department that serves everyone regardless of the time or who they are. In the budget, we identified 3 of our goals. We have our strategic plan, which has 8 key target areas, but this year, the emphasis of this year is on 3 particular things, and they are community interaction and relation building to sustain legitimacy, which is critical during these difficult times that we're in, consistent and constitutional crime prevention in a fair and impartial manner, which is always critical, and protecting the health and wellness of our personnel through awareness and professional collaboration. And through those goals, we want to enhance transparency and accountability, enhance townwide safety and protect civil liberties, and enhance the safety and quality of life. I included this next portion just as part of what our key areas are that we do. We all know that you see the marked police cars out riding around, patrolling the neighborhoods and engage in the community. We respond to calls for service. We have active crime prevention efforts, and we conduct investigations, and in our community, traffic safety is always part of the conversation. As long as I've been here, it's the #1 issue that people have brought up since I got here. Community engagement is critical, prosecution of crimes, taking care of our equipment, training and wellness is another huge emphasis that we're working very hard at the station, down at the PD, and with Fire On, and with Youth and Family Services to care for our officers. In fact, this month we're delivering training on QPR, which is a class where they teach about stress, the impact of stress, and especially the impact over time, and then gives actionable skills for someone to respond should they feel that someone's expressing suicidal ideations. It teaches them tools to support them. We also support the schools. We arrest people. And we're spending some time on emergency preparedness, collaboratively with the fire department and the communications department to enhance that. So what are the numbers? It's a pretty straightforward budget. It's built primarily, the vast majority of it comes from the salary portion, the hourly portion, which represents your police officers within the union. And that saw a sharp increase of 13.1%. That is occurring for two key reasons. The first being that collective bargaining agreement that was recently signed, and we also have many officers moving through the steps of the collective bargaining agreement, which each step accounts for a 5% increase in their pay. Salary, which is people like myself, the administrative manager, and the deputy and lieutenant, is up 4.1%. And that's simply due to the merit increases that were given this year. It does not factor in any potential merit increases for next year. And overtime went up 2.7%. As you may or may not know, 2.7% represents about the amount of the collective bargaining agreement increase. It also, within that, you should know that we can't budget for things like military deployment or impact the cost of that, or leave, medical leave, or short-term sick time. So we don't budget for those things. And finally, for my capital, it's a 13.8% increase in cruisers, up to $205,000 for 3 cruisers. And that's what they're projecting. That's what the bids are showing. And I think we're seeing inflationary costs all around, and that's representative. And last year, there was a big increase in them as well. So this budget for salary, hourly, and overtime is a level services budget. The operations budget increase is a level funded, so no increases through the operations budget. Be happy to answer any questions.
One question I had, I thought, it looks like it says 10% increase in personnel in the PowerPoint, but you were just saying, did you say 13%?
So if you can, I don't know if Ben has it, but if you look at, I'm looking at the spreadsheet that we submit, that what's called our 210, and the increase goes from $2,218,661 to $2,508,914. That represents a 13% increase.
13.
Huh.
So.
Okay.
I don't think we have that in the.
Yeah, we do.
I think it's
right
not in our
here.
packet, yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
It results overall for salary in a 10% increase.
Okay, so that
Because
must
the
be.
other ones are less, because overtime and salary are a much lower percentage of increase.
Okay. So it evens out, all right, a little bit. Okay. Did anyone else have any questions or comments?
So not necessarily the numbers, but just understanding that you're building sort of an exciting new department with a lot of young officers. I just sort of have a question about how things are, the public was, I'm sure, interested. We're all thinking about you in these times too. I know everybody is very challenged with the country's events and so forth, and systemic racism is a problem across all institutions in the United States, and it's incumbent upon us all to do our part, but also not forget that we are well served, and know that it's hard for all people that are affected by these events. So appreciate. But would appreciate hearing how the department is doing, how the young officers are acclimating, and...
Sure. So we have many new members, and a little diversity in age, and certainly we've become more diverse. And I'll share that I'm very proud that people are bringing their friends in, people who are diverse, are actively recruiting members into the department. It shows that they feel welcome, they feel that they belong, and they're optimistic about the future. As far as the staff that are newer, they're very excited about the opportunity to be here and where we're going. And it's truly a pleasure to walk into the squadron these days. So a lot of stuff happening. We're still actively recruiting and interviewing to get up to full strength, and we're working towards that. But the topic of retention and recruitment is the prevalent conversation everywhere I go. So I was with chiefs today for my annual in-service, and it came up. All of our trade journals, it comes up. Every conference you go to, it comes up. We're really struggling as a nation to field police officers. And many officers are just leaving the field. So what we need to do is we need to hear from you guys, the support. The community continues to show us support, and it helps a lot. It really does. So thank you, and thank you to the community.
Mary Jo, did you have any?
Can I ask one?
I'm just-
I'm
oh, sorry,
sorry.
another
No, it's not your fault, it's my fault. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
The increases in personnel, is that an increase in numbers as well? I know that the contractual, but that also, just for the community, is that an increase in numbers this year as well?
This is a level staffing budget.
Level staffing, okay, sorry, thank you.
I'm guessing, is it also because we were short a few people last year, I would guess it would have to go up this year if we're fully staffed too, right?
I'm sorry, could
We
you,
short a few people last year, and so maybe our numbers that we spent was lower, or
the budget represents the same number of staffed officers
Okay.
at every level.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mary Jo?
Well, I don't have too much to say about the budget. I think it is what it is, so to speak. But I'm just awfully glad to have our police department. I'm very proud of them, and I feel very secure in Hopkinton, and I just want to thank you guys for your service.
Through the chair, thank you.
Through the chair, yeah, thank you, Chief. As always, we appreciate all the work that you and your department do and to keep us safe. So thank you for all the good, hard work. And we are always here to support you and the department, certainly. In terms of budget, I have a couple of questions, but before I go there, I think I like how you match the priority and the goals to the budget. And really, I think a good way to present it and strategically plan. So nice work there. One thing I was observing, a lot of these are moving towards, improvement, whether it be on the retention side, on the training side, on the overall process side, and as Muriel mentioned, in some of the tension areas as well. I'm wondering, in general, this is a great way to do it, and kudos to you and the department for coming up with these ideas. Keep doing and focusing on that as you always do. I'm thinking, do you feel there is enough support for these type of process initiation and process identification from your end? Because I know you all are busy in keeping us safe, doing your day-to-day and overall work, and this sometimes needs a little bit stepping back and then finding out and analyzing, and you are managing so much. Kudos to you again. What are your thoughts? Is there anything we can do to help, or you feel you're staffed or you have enough going on?
Well, yes, through the chair, the support that you gave me last time I was before you, I think is really going to help give me some breathing room to continue to assess the area. Now that we're moved beyond COVID, the ability to be around in person with more people that I can reach out to. My circle of contacts and mentors have grown. I've started mentoring other new chiefs. So the scope of what I have exposed to has grown a lot. And what you get, the addition of those sergeants is going to give me the bandwidth to really capitalize on it. So, so I'm grateful for that. And we'll see. We brought in recently, Mr. Kamalo and I brought in a contractor to help us with accreditation. We're going to be moving to the 6th version of accreditation, which will take about 140 hours of report writing and coming into compliance with POST. And we found a very favorable vendor that, and we signed a contract. So again, that's going to ensure that we make it become recertified at the next level. It's an extremely daunting task, and where we are building, we need to be focusing. It'll still be a lot of work on our side to do it. They're not going to come in and do review of our use of force, but they'll build the structure in the background for us. So we're very excited about that. And, so I am looking at force multipliers.
Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely a lot of thought works and good initiatives going on, and as many ways as we can support, we're here. And we are again proud of all the work that you do. In terms of budget, I just had one question, and I would also like to probably hear from Mr. O'Leary, since you're here. From the police force perspective, this is a level budget, thankfully, so thank you, you were able to manage it within that. Now, with all the growth that we are experiencing and all the complexity that comes with it, burden of which goes to your department, do you feel you have a good projection of your staffing and equipment and everything wise, say the next 5 years or next 10 years? I ask that question to school, as you may have heard often, but I think we all are focused on that. I knew you and other departments are too. I just want to hear your perspective. How does that fit into kind of with the projection for the growth that Mr. O'Leary has on the budget? And if there is something that you feel we need to do more work in fine-tuning?
Sure. So in looking at staffing and build out of the structure of the organization, I've projected out growth of the community and growth of the department. Our strategic plan identified staffing level at build out to 35 officers. So total officers including command staff. So what does that look like? Are there increases at the command level? How is the department structured and set up? Those are the problems that will evolve based on the metrics, based on what are we doing? Is the volume of calls staying the same, or are the volume of calls becoming more intense and more specialty needs to be established, or a division needs to be parsed out to deal with it? I don't anticipating a huge spike in crime and us having to develop anti-crime or street crimes units, but we won't know until we really get there and build it out. So you have to look at that. When you look at staffing, there are national models that are produced based on population, as well as I think I've spoken to this, there's models that you can use based on the formula of, you take the officer's duties, administrative duties, report writing, maintenance, training, and you build out a model based on that. But what the adjustable factor is what the community wants the officer to have for free time. And in our community, I don't believe we want our officers working 8 hours. We want them in the neighborhoods. We want them to stop and engage the community. So what is the value of that number of hours per shift? And then you can build out a staffing model. We have traditionally stayed about 1.4. And so if we build that out, I shouldn't have put myself in a math problem while I'm public speaking, but take the build out, multiply it by 1 by 4. Under this policing model, we would stay. That's what we would build it out to, under this policing model. Now, should our job change significantly, then we'd have to look at specialization and command structure in a different way. I have the number in my head. I just probably shouldn't put myself in a bad spot by saying what the build out will look like.
No, thank you. Yeah, I think that's very important, and it looks like we're all working towards it. And it would need tuning time to time, understandably.
Yeah.
So,
yes, sir.
and again, great work with the new recruits and building the recruiting pitch and reputation. Looks like we are getting a lot of attraction. And I believe we have a pretty competitive compensation overall, which is also hopefully going to help.
Yes, through the chair, and that is why there's such a significant increase in the hourly, and we're all grateful for that, and it's a great recruitment and retention tool to be competitive.
And again, thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
I think I did think of 2 questions. So I noticed under new starts, you have this citizen engagement item about expanding awareness of the police functions and duties around the community. And I wondered if you could tell us a little more about that. Is it in the schools, or you might be going to the senior center, or?
So we want to try to do all of that. COVID really knocked us back on our community engagement, and we want to get back out into the community, and we want them to be able to spend quality time with those that they're engaging and not have to take a call and leave. Although it looks good, when we get a call and we have to run to our car and put our bullets in there. It doesn't accomplish the mission of task that they were on prior. So we want them to be focused and also to develop programs. So that's what that's for overtime.
Okay. And is that something you can designate to one of your new sergeants or something? Or?
Sure, there is a sergeant assigned to that task, and he'll be tasked with building a team and coming up with some programs and objectives.
That's great. And then
we will, along the way, try to capture outputs and outcomes, if any, and
yeah, track it and see what worked and what didn't. And then, I think Marilyn and I both said we wanted to ask too. Were there things that you wanted to ask for this year, but because the budget is so tight as it is, you have to put off till next year, or?
I mean, you always want to ask for more people. You always want to ask for more, more. But I think we're in a good place right now.
Okay, that's just helpful for us to know too, and to plan ahead too for next year. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Can I just ask a follow-up, Chief? When you talk about accreditation at the 6th level and compliance with the post standards and so forth, can you just, in layman's terms, share with the public what that really means in terms of developing your police department?
Sure. So at the base level, what accreditation affords us, we're a member of a commission. The commission goes out and gathers national standards and creates policies based on those national standards. So within a policy, there'll be things that must be met in a certain way. So how we handle evidence. It might have 5 elements about how we handle evidence, and they must match the standard that is set by the commission. The commission also takes when Post was created and all the changes into that and incorporates them into the standard. Additionally, going to 6, they added 25 more policies, so now we're up around 300 mandatory policies. We have way more policies than that, and unfortunately, where they're all stored, I can't just get I tried to get a number, and I wouldn't produce a number of policies, but I know we're over 300 because of the number of mandatory policies that we already have, plus I know we have many more policies than that. So what the 6th edition does is it reaches the commission's goals for enhancement even prior to Post. Post, Police Officer Standards and Training, was created through legislature and mandates reform in policing.
Right.
Accreditation has been moving towards standardization all along. Many of the things that were in Post, like a big item was no chokeholds. Mm-hmm. We banned chokeholds long ago, but the language that came out of Post.
Hopkinton?
Yes, we have not allowed chokeholds.
Yep.
For a long time. So what Post did is they wrote specific language that said, this is what your no chokeholds policy will say verbatim. So now...
And it might not match what we
Right,
have
so
already.
we went in and changed them as they were coming out, but they keep coming out in a flurry. So this vendor will help us. They're all skilled accreditation managers that did the job, has done the job, and now this is a second career for them. So one of them got Somerville accredited, so he's very skilled at it. And we're in really good shape, I believe. We just can't afford to fall behind. And just the changes are 140 hours, not even compliance. Like at the beginning of the year, I have to generate reports on different hot button topics, a year review. So in addition to reviewing those use of forces throughout the year, I have to do a summary report in the beginning of the year. So just the compliance is a daunting task, let alone trying to go to 6. This firm says that it's 120 to 140 hours minimum for a skilled administrative manager. So.
But it's all about bringing professional standards and uniform standards and public safety and the public's best interests all into alignment and acknowledging sort of also the broader questions that are happening in police reform and with police issues.
Absolutely. It codifies all those issues into a document that you can work with.
Can I ask you this last question? Do we do any specific anti-racist training in the department?
So we're on about 19 years of systemic racism.
Yeah, okay.
So as the nation learned about that, we've been trained.
So that's an active piece of your training in
Sure.
your department?
We have an anti-bias policing policy. We are required to collect demographic information when we write citations. It's layered throughout each layer. Even my use of force report has to list metrics about that.
I appreciate that. And I think, you know, as this conversation continues, and sometimes it's harder than others, obviously, I think that it's important for the public to know that you and your department are doing, taking active steps and working hard. You can't fix what you don't know is wrong. We can't fix what you don't measure. So I appreciate the focus on data and your openness with these questions. I appreciate that.
That led to another question from me. I'm sorry for making you stay up here too long, but so I know, like, for school committees, because they have all these massive policies that are required by the state, they have a service from the Mass Association of School Committees about putting them all online and making them easily searchable by keyword. Do they have something like that for these new post policies, or maybe on the state website?
Excellent question. Through the chair, right now we're using a one-off application within our scheduling package. The vendor provided for free, where we can put out policies and the officers can read them and sign off on them. So we can track that they've acknowledged and read them. Mm-hmm. We're looking at a vendor. We have a scheduled appointment with one or two vendors in the next couple of weeks that perform a much higher level of monitoring, where we can input a policy or a test on use of force. It will send it out to the officers and then give notices. This was due yesterday. After a couple of days, trigger an email to their supervisor and track that. But the power of that is it builds a structure, a repeatable structure. So if we know we have to do use of force every year,
They'll get in the habit,
we can set it in, go in and set up a bank of 25 questions, have it randomize the questions, and every year the test goes out automatically and notifications get sent. So we're working trying to get every force multiplier that we can to streamline things so that we can keep moving forward and work on the next thing.
That's great. Okay, I think we're
very
all
much
set. Yep,
appreciate
thank you
it.
very much.
Sure. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Camello, I would love to see the slide that shows us the whole thing, the whole increase. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but we didn't.
Yes,
it's more of a one-pager.
yes. I was going to touch base with the chief. The comprehensive budget does show 10.2. His PowerPoint shows 10.2. I'm going to speak with him regarding the 13% increase.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, who's next?
Maybe.
Yeah, Chief Miller.
Math. Hey, Chief.
Good evening. All right, good evening, Madam Chair, Select Board, Town Manager. Thank you for this opportunity to present the Fire Department's FY24 budget. Our goal is to operate with an effective response force to serve the community needs with a diverse workforce at the same time. As Hopkinton continues to grow, so does the request for services on the fire department. This past year, in calendar year 2022, we've seen a 3.1% increase in requests for services. We've had our busiest year for calls for service with 2,513 emergency incidents in the community. From that number compared to 2021's numbers, we're at a 12.2% increase in call volume. So we're steadily seeing a call volume come up as the community grows, which is common. It's going to happen as the community expands. With our projections, we're projecting within the next 4 years will be over 3,000 emergency calls within the community of Hopkinton. So with that, a quick overview of the budget. I did not come in level this year. I actually came in high this year, and my reasoning is a couple of the stats I just gave you real quick, like regarding the increased call volume, the percentage is going up, the demand for services is there. So what I did this year here is the salaries line item. I'm looking for an additional $269,815.48 to hire 4 line personnel. That'll add 1 position per group, and 1 additional position in the fire prevention division for community risk reduction at $86,607.02. The community risk reduction is really an important piece. When I first became fire chief, Mary Jo gave me that as one of my tasks, and we're struggling to honestly keep up with it. And right now what we're trying to do is we try to do it with duty crew personnel, and as the call volume's going up, it's very difficult to take that staff and redirect them to go and do home visits or follow up on calls. And all we're trying to do now is basically just follow up with calls that are being what we call flagged from the duty crew that goes out and does a medical and sees something that needs to be followed up with, a visit, whatever it happens to be. So we are really struggling to do that. And we feel community risk reduction is definitely an important aspect for the town of Hopkinton. The third piece you'll see is a $20,000 increase. We're trying to raise our minimum staffing. It's embarrassing for me to sit here and tell you, but we're still operating at minimum staffing from 2004. We dropped down to 4 personnel. That is not an effective response for us. It is not safe for you as residents. It's not safe for the staff of the fire department as well. 4 personnel handles 1 call only, and that's it. We're relying on mutual aid after that. So there is a significance where we need to get our staffing up and raise our minimum so we can handle multiple calls. Questions on that piece at all?
So the community risk reduction person, that person wouldn't go out on calls, they would focus on...
Their primary job, Madam Chair, would do community risk reduction, but on a day when it got busy, they would need to go out and do calls as well. Yes, they cannot be segregated just to one specific task. We still need to be well-versed.
Okay. And what is our shift minimum now?
So our minimum staffing is 4 right now. Yes.
Okay, and so we'll be able to get up to 5 then on some shifts?
Well, we're trying to maintain 5 right now within the budget. It is financially challenging. I'm going to be honest with you, the ultimate goal is we need to be at 6. 6 allows us to handle multiple calls. That's 2 medicals and still leaves 2 personnel for the 3rd call. I don't have the time tonight, but I would gladly forward our stats from our multiple calls, triple calls, quadruple calls from last year. The numbers are really high. So we need to be preparing for that and not relying on our mutual aid partners as much as we are currently today.
Okay.
Can I ask a question to you, Madam Chair? The workforce is still, I assume workforce and finding people is also a huge challenge for the fire department as well.
It is. We currently still have 2 open positions. And if by some chance, we are granted the 4 new hires and the 1 additional fire prevention person, those people will not be hired tomorrow. We're just not finding them. It's going to take time to find these people and fit them into our organization. So, as I stated, we are still down 2 personnel today.
Yeah.
If we drop down to our operations piece, a lot of the increases you're seeing are unfortunately out of our control. They're inflation. There's not much I can do to maintain that. We do need to make sure that we maintain our vehicles, our buildings, contractual agreements, employee development, our contracted services, our firefighter supplies, PPE, EMS supplies, and uniforms. So most of that is inflation and, again, out of our control. So with that being said, I did come in at 9.2% this year for the increase, but again, that is the 5 additional staff that we're looking for to get the shift staffing up and the 1 person for community risk reduction under the fire prevention division.
And then capital?
Capital,
Yeah.
okay.
Or do we have questions on that?
Any questions?
Sorry, just looking at the budget request summary, that's the total budget or that's the increased part of the budget?
My overall budget increase was 9.3%.
Here it says 11, I'm seeing it wrong,
Are you in our packet?
on page 17.
Page 17.
But while we find that, in general, how many personnel you have now, and with the 5 addition, what will be the...
So When we're at full staff, we'll have 33 personnel, including the deputy and myself, and that would bring us to the 5 additional staff would bring us to 38.
All right. And along the same line, that question I had for the police chief, do you have plans for next 5 years, 10 years, based on the projection and also including a second fire station, what your staffing and budget would look like?
So yes, we do. In capital this year, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit, there's a $70,000 request to do the engineering study for Station 2, so we can proceed with doing an addition onto Station 2, which will help our future growth in the call volume that we're experiencing down into the Woodville, we call it the Woodville section of town, or the northwest, northeast section of town, which is difficult for us to get to from headquarters with traffic, weather conditions, and just the response area. It's a long response time from headquarters. So with that, we're also looking at, I don't want to scare anybody when I put this number out there, but the future growth of the department would be 10 personnel. That would be a captain, a lieutenant, and 8 firefighter paramedics out of 2 stations. And that would probably be in the time frame we're looking to be over 3,000 runs, which is in relative same as many other departments who are experiencing those numbers today.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we always want to manage the budget. We also want to make sure you are appropriately equipped and planned for the future.
Thank you.
One other question. You mentioned we have now 2,500 per year.
Yes.
And forecasting to 3,000.
Yes.
So almost 20% increase. Is that just because of population or because of certain trends in like?
I would say it's just in population. It's just an increase across the board. Last year we had 6 what we call working building fires, structure fires with a very high dollar loss. I don't know if that's going to happen this year here. I can't predict that. Medical calls we can predict, and our normal, motor vehicle accidents, vehicle fires, fire alarm activations, mutual aid calls, all of that is going to continue to rise. But again, a big factor is that as the community continues to grow, so are the requests that we're feeling.
Thank you.
Anything else before?
I don't think I have any questions. I just, I very much appreciate the challenge that you face with a growing town and growing needs, and appreciate knowing sort of where we are, how the responses are going, and what we can reasonably expect the needs to be in the near-term future. So I appreciate all this hard work to put this in front of us.
Thank you.
I think it's very helpful. Yeah.
Can I just do capital, finish up really quick, 'cause I know I kind of jumped around a little bit. So my capital, I'm looking for 4 items this year. We need to replace a 2011 F-250 pickup, which is the lieutenant's vehicle. The vehicle is higher mileage. I'm proud to say we do operate our vehicles to end of life, and it is starting to see a lot of rot and body decay across the doors and the fenders and hood. Same thing with the 2011 Chevy Tahoe. It's got 87,000 plus miles as of today. Same thing. It's showing signs of severe rust corrosion on the doors and fenders. Also looking to replace our 25-year-old breathing air fill station. That is for our SCBA that we use on a daily basis for any atmosphere that we need to go on supplied air. That system compressor is actually end of life. It's outdated, and for us to find parts is very difficult. We rely on the vendor to find parts, and it is costly to come in and have them make routine repairs on it. And the 4th one is the Station 2 engineering for the future addition for the north side of the building.
For Station 2, we voted on something for it last year, right? Was that just a feasibility?
No, we did 400,000 last year,
Yep.
and that's to do maintenance and upgrades to keep us in the building and keep it going until we can get the addition done.
Okay, great. So, I'm not sure that I have any questions. I think that was a good explanation. So it sounds like you do need more staffing than we're able to get this year, but we have a plan to kind of get there.
Yes.
Okay, gradually, okay.
Excellent.
I don't have any other. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Mary Jo, I'll sit back down.
The new station that we're looking at, where is have we found a location, or are we still looking at the Woodville location?
Right now, Mary Jo, we're going to be looking to continue working on the Woodville station.
Okay.
We have it, and we've targeted that as an area that is, for us, the response times are really long for that area. So we want to try to shorten that response time up and continue to build our effective response force with that.
And just expanding on that question, is that the trouble area in town, or there are other areas that are hard to get to?
That's the most difficult area for us to get to right now, is the Woodville section. You got to understand that if we go from headquarters to Spring Street or Falcon Ridge.
Oh, I understand.
I
live in God's country out there.
That could be a 12 to 15 minute response time from headquarters, depending on weather. A normal day is probably 8 to 10 minutes for us to get there.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're looking to cut that down, and that's all part of the big project that we did. We started, Deputy Doherty is working on it as we speak, is to work on lowering our ISO rating. And having that second station staffed in that area that is very difficult was already defined back when Chief Slayman was here, when we did the study in 2017, that stated that's a trouble area for us. So I want to concentrate where we have a building already there, we have the land to build that up and get that piece covered if we can.
Just, this is a kind of a different question, but when you have to call for backup from
Usually.
another town, what are the towns that you most frequently call?
So on a medical, it is geographically driven. So if we call on the south side of town, Milford would be our first call. If it's on the north side, depending if it's northwest or northeast, it's going to be Westboro or Southboro, and anything on the east side of town is going to be Ashland. Those are our primary mutual aid that we call, and same thing for a fire. We have a run card that we follow. Ashland comes in on automatic aid, and then when we go what we call to a working fire, you'll get your Southboro, Milford, and Westboro mutual aid as well.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Communications, Megan Durand.
Yeah, should I do more? I look at it. I think 17 might be Megan's piece, not. That might be why it's a different number.
Good evening.
Good evening. So our budget's not quite as complicated as those, so I should be pretty quick. The easy part of our budget for this year is the our operations and expenses, level funding that, no change at all. The personnel services, of course, is where a majority of our budget is, and that is where an increase is this year, showing at an 11% increase, and it's due to 3 different reasons. Contractual increases that they'll be receiving after we ratify the contract shortly. And I'm seeking 2 new starts. One is a mid-level management position to put somebody between myself and the line staff to more effectively operate the department. And then over the years, we've noticed when a big storm's going to come, we need extra coverage, right? We get the storm surge calls because 1 tree down is 10 calls minimum, usually at the same time. So, handling all that call volume in the heat of a storm is necessary. So trying to get some emergency coverage overtime in there to kind of offset that a little bit will help. And in the sense of those 3 reasons for the 11%, 54% of all of that is the contractual increases. So that took, if the contractual increases didn't occur, it would only really be about a 5% increase in the payroll overall. So, and that's pretty much it.
Does anyone have any questions for Megan?
I'm going to ask the same question of you, because it's communications that I just asked the fire chief, and I did mean to ask the police chief too. When you give calls, or you get calls for backup, what towns do you usually support Hopkinton?
Which ones do we bring in?
Yeah, when you need to call.
Yeah,
for assistance.
As Chief Miller said, we do a lot of times do it on a geographical basis, and that operates for police as well. If I've got an officer on the east side of town in a fight with somebody and he needs help, I'm not calling someone from Westboro. I'm calling someone from the closest location of Ashland. And as far as on the police side, we will use all the towns around us, whatever's closest. And fire's a little different in the fact that it's they're on the fire side, it's structured versus on their run card, so it's spelled out who we're going to call. And then the medical side of it is geographical, because again, we want the closest. So it's pretty well evened up. I'd say mostly Milford, Westboro, Ashland would be the majority of the times.
Jay, did you have any questions?
A couple through the chair.
Yep.
One, what's your current staffing scenario, and with this, how much it's going to change?
Right now, we have 8 full-time dispatchers, and then myself as the only full-time staff. So in looking to add this mid-level management position would put someone between myself and the line staff. It would allow for a multitude of different tasks to be assisted from myself. For one, I can focus more on managing the department as opposed to supervising the line staff, which right now I'm juggling both. So it really needs something to split up those tasks, because at times they need more attention than I can humanly give them. I'm one person. So and ultimately beyond that, I would look to, grow it beyond that years down the road. Because obviously if police and fire calls are going up, ours are too. So, ultimately as the town grows, we would try to grow the department with it as well.
Yeah.
This would let you focus on administrative tasks and not have to jump in situations,
Yeah.
often, okay.
Right.
Because I think you take calls too at times. So-
If I need to, I will. If the phone's ringing off the hook, I will pick one up. If I hear something, if I'm in my office and I hear them tone out something or dispatch out something serious, I'll jump right up and run out there, and if anything, just stand there to back them up. If they need it, I let them do their jobs, of course, but if in the event they need the assistance, that hand is always nice to have. I never had that when I was on the desk.
But I think we also need you to lead and...
Right, exactly. That's the whole juggling the
and
two
especially
things.
when we heard that the fire is expecting 20% increase, and they have been experiencing, so obviously...
Yeah, they certainly have. The multiple calls at the same time is, I think it's happening every day now, it seems. It's wild.
Yeah. And related to that, as I asked the other chiefs as well, do you have your projection based on kind of in cadence of the other volume projections, what you'd look like 5 years, 10 years?
It's pretty difficult on the communication side of it, because my understanding is on police and fire side, they have model formulas to use based on call volume, based on population, based on, a multitude of different things that numbers-wise you can put together, and there is no real easy formula out there for communications. There is the program from a vendor, APCO, it's called Retains is the name of the program, but it's a program you need to pay for to go through to figure out what you need, where your course of action is and whatnot. So I'm not super familiar with it because I haven't paid for it to see it. So it's a lot more difficult to determine, but I mean, absolutely I'd want to, grow with the community, grow with our partnering departments and provide the service that we always have and continue to keep it top notch.
Okay, yeah, I think that's something we need to comprehensively manage and integrate within our budget forecasts as well. Another budget-related question. On several rec center-related discussions as well as other budget discussions, we heard about the equipment upgrade-related costs. I don't see that. Is that in somewhere here, or what is your...
So I have no capital for this year. This current year capital I have for a study to determine what we do need. And we're in the process of working through that right now to determine, looking at all of our current equipment, what's got to be replaced, what kinds of things can be added to make. We have a spot on the south side of town for both police and fire. It's just a dead zone. We've been battling it for years. So we need to figure out a fix for that corner of town. So we're working with a vendor now to get that plan in place to bring that to capital for next year. I know there has been questions asked of the State 911 department as to whether or not the rec would take that or not. And it sounds like the answer is, it kind of depends on how you work it out with the rec when and if you start it. So if the rec decides to take that on, then great, they take it on. But if they don't want to, I don't know that they necessarily have to. But, and it's also, of course, if the grant money would be approved for it as well.
So for a dead zone, do you mean an area where you can't receive cell phone calls? Or
Not cell phone, radio traffic.
Oh.
We have a couple spots that sometimes you can't get anything, sometimes it's extremely scratchy and you can't understand what's being said, and sometimes it's pretty spotty. It's pretty rough.
And so a solution would be some kind of signal or a tower or something?
Yeah, essentially. We had, before the radio systems got upgraded, like overall, a couple years ago, 4 or 5 years ago or so, we used to piggyback off of a Holliston tower when we had the same technologies going, and then they had upgraded their tower and we lost that access, unfortunately.
I see, okay.
So
that is not in the budget for this year, but it's something you're...
Correct, I'm working on it to prep it for next year, yeah.
Okay.
No, that's good to hear. But I would also suggest, and I'm sure you have it top of your mind, is if there is some risk area that you see that needs immediate attention, don't hesitate to bring it up.
Yeah, it definitely is a risk area. It's a very expensive risk area, though, so I don't know if it's something that we could pull off a quick fix on anything, or a Band-Aid fix, unfortunately.
Does anyone have more questions?
I think I'm all set.
We've been hearing a lot about Pro Phoenix lately. Could you give us in the town a little update on what Pro Phoenix is?
So ProPhoenix is our in-house software that we use, our records management software and our CAD software, computer-aided dispatch. It's essentially 3 programs in one, if you will. The CAD side of it for dispatch, and then an RMS side for either police or fire. And essentially they all work together where the dispatchers enter the calls. And then once the dispatchers are done, it sends it off to the police or fire side where they can then do their reporting on their sides. We're about 15, 16 months into launching it live. We're getting smoothed out with it. It was a bit of a transition, very big change from what we had prior. So of course having 70-something people learning it is a challenge in and of itself. So, but we're working through it. We're getting there. Where we do get stuck, we are still able to reach out to our project manager from ProPhoenix to help us through things and either kind of guide us in how to get a task done, or if something's not working right, they can get it fixed, things like that. But it's going and it's good. It's a massive change, so it's an adjustment for everybody.
And how many people have this? Do you know?
That's a tough question. So I can tell you we were the 3rd in Massachusetts, and others are signing on. A solid number, I don't know right now. If I had to guess, I'd say around 7-ish in Massachusetts. They have a strong Wisconsin base, they have a strong New Jersey base, there's a couple, other areas of the country that they have, but so what happened with us is when we essentially not lost, but when our former software had announced that we're done, we're no longer going to support it, we obviously had to move on, so we chose them. Well, we were one of 20-something, 30-something agencies that were all using that same software, so everybody's shopping at the same time. So a lot of those that were in that former vendor with us are joining in with ProPhoenix, but it's not happening fast. It's, slowly happening, but several of my colleagues from our old vendor have signed on.
Okay, are we all set?
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night again. The Deltorio Facilities and Town Engineer.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Prepared a couple slides for you folks. There was one for the budget, and there was one for my capital this year. But in general, for facilities, we maintain town buildings. We have 15 town buildings that we still manage. We have 6.25 full-time employees now. We have 1 second shift permanent custodian, 2 daytime custodians, myself, and a facilities manager. We also have a part-timer assigned to the senior center, mostly for night events and for night meetings and other miscellaneous tasks. The department's vision, really big picture. We want to provide clean, safe, comfortable public spaces, comfortable working environments for employees in those 15 buildings, and minimize expenses where possible. The big 3 goals for the department really is, provide first-class service, be risk-averse as possible in all decisions, and do our job so that, residents and visitors, residents can take some pride in their buildings and their public spaces, and hopefully visitors, during the marathon can, be envious of our buildings, even though they see just the outsides of them for the most part. So my budget submission this year, the personnel budget, I have about a 6% increase. That's mainly through the raises provided this year. My utilities, which is electricity, gas, oil, water, and sewer, I have about almost a 4% decrease this year.
Wow.
Streetlights is a separate department. We're maintaining the budget for that. And all other expenses, I had about a 4.4% increase. Overall, the budget is a 1.65% increase this year over the other, providing level service for all the buildings. The savings in the utilities, through some cost-effective measures, we're still, as well as having additional fiscal years for different buildings that we had to provide, was mostly oil, heating oil for, the Woodville Fire Station and 6 Walcott Street. The initial budget increase for those were just based on an estimate. Now that we have a couple years of actual operating budget, we were able to cut out some of that initial budget request for those 2 buildings for heating oil. And the other part is the shutdown of Center School can happen over 2 fiscal years. So the last fiscal year, we reduced some of the utility costs for Center School. We don't have the lights, we don't heat as much. So there was additional savings in electricity and heating gas for Center School next fiscal year. So those are the major items where we were able to save costs and where the increases were.
I've been wondering if it was more energy efficient solutions, but it's more just less need.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was wondering if you were using more energy efficient solutions for utilities, but it sounds like more like we'd overestimated previously and we're just using less.
The heating oil was an overestimate. The Center School, the electricity is just a reduction in, use in Center School. We did realize some additional savings for, we have a Hayden Row solar power purchase agreement for the library. So we realized more savings in that building this year. And again, that was an agreement that we signed that we need additional, more than 1 fiscal year of data to really be comfortable and be fiscally responsible reducing that a utility line item. Put some thought into it. You don't want to just assume just because last year it wasn't cold, this year it's not going to be. So we've had some significant variances in all our utility budgets from one year to another. So it's something I'm comfortable with this year, and I worked with the town manager and CFO.
Chair, thank you. I like your budget increase. It's probably the lowest that I've seen.
Yes, good job.
Yeah.
Good to see you for
Celebrating
managing that. Quick question. Do you have a general understanding or give us a general understanding how much we are spending in maintaining the central school on a year-to-year basis? It used to be a good number or a significant number. I'm just wondering if it went down or...
Yeah, it's certainly gone down since the town took responsibility for that building, only because, we didn't have the same type of use for that building since we took it over. We were able to keep the heat lower, even though we do still heat it. The same with the electricity. We still have electricity on in some of the areas we don't. But,
if you can provide that later, maybe that's fine too.
Yeah, the biggest, for 2021, just for the electricity, we paid about $14,000. 2022 was about $10,000. And it just kind of has gone down since then. That's just one. We break out utilities by every line item for each building. But I could try to pick it off the spreadsheet, or and I can provide that to you folks under a separate email.
Thanks. Just curious.
Good.
Through the chair, another question that's not directly budget related, but we heard from, and we are excited to also take on the net zero as our town's goal. Do you have a sense of how that gives the opportunity to improve the 15 buildings or the work that you are doing, where you see the opportunities? And there must be some that are pretty challenging because these are old buildings and equipment.
It will be a challenge to get to net zero. I kind of coordinated with the committee on that policy. I am working with, energy consultants for the buildings, looking into solar canopies for a few of the buildings. I don't want to list them out until we find if they're feasible or not, but, the available buildings are, police station, DPW, senior center. We have areas where we can put in solar canopies, coordinating with DPW through the water and sewer department to do assessments of their pumping stations and how we can incorporate energy saving measures in those buildings. Some of those buildings still have, low-hanging fruit, changing to LEDs, looking at the pumps for, instead of the constant speed pumps, replace them with variable speed pumps. We purchased the solar panels on the fire and police stations, and we're working with the solar companies to upgrade those systems with more efficient panels. And we'll continue to look at other power purchase and net metering agreements, and certainly work with the committee. There's a lot of expertise on the committee. We can keep coordinating with them and implementing energy saving measures where possible.
Thank you.
And you have some capital items as well?
I have one capital item this year. Again, it's a project originally related to the EMC Park skate park project with the Park and Recs Department. Coordinating with the Park and Recs Department, between Town Manager's Office and the Parks and Rec Commission. Everyone thought it would be a good idea to have Parks and Rec work on the skate park and have the town, through Town Engineer's Office, work on a drainage infrastructure improvement for that site. There was a prior approval at town meeting for funding for this project. What this project really does is restore the original design, the original detention basins that were installed for that project, as well as to complete it. For whatever reason, it was the original plans for that project were to have an overflow drainage line run through out to, of course I'm going to forget the name of the road now, the road behind.
Blueberry Lane or?
Hazel Road. Thank you, Elaine. There's a existing infrastructure, drainage infrastructure on Hazel Road. So this project finishes the original project by installing the drain line from the EMC Park detention basins into the existing infrastructure on Hazel Road.
And is that, that be a CPC funded or no? Because,
Not as a utility project. The skate park project, yes, and that was another reason kind of try to separate it.
okay, that's a lot of money, but okay. Any other, any questions about the capital?
No, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay. And then in our motions here, we have the town manager budget memo excerpt. Is that something you wanted to go over with us?
Not exactly. What we want to continue to communicate are the budget impacts that both the CFO and the town manager highlighted at your last meeting. Specifically, how the budgets relate to the budget message.
Where we're in excess.
Yes,
Yeah.
as well as the impact of the increases, the current year increases in the operating budget on the outlying years, and then finally capital projects financial impact and how that relates to the town's ability to fund and move forward some of the capital projects that have been identified.
So, so what we heard tonight, those are still, are some of those things have been removed from the budget, or no? I know some capital requests have been suggested to be deferred, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes, in terms of the capital projects requested, remember we have a process where we go through CICs, those involving CPC, we go through CPC, and then on the CIC projects, we then tie them to the comprehensive budget process, and in the town manager presentation, we identify projects that could move forward in FY24, and those that need to be deferred to future years.
Okay. But the ones presented by the police chief and fire chief, those are able to go, those are for now expected to go forward. Those are not.
Police chief, yes. Fire chief, I think there still needs to be some discussion around one or two of the projects.
Okay. That's good to know. Let's see. Does anyone have questions about that?
No, I guess I just want to make sure I emphasize or elevate the concern, right? So when you talk about the impact over the out years, what I think you're really saying, what I think I'm understanding, is that by contemplating increases at this rate with the resources that we have, we are actually building into the budget process some instability, some unsustainability, right? And that's the thing that we need to think about this year as it impacts the out years, is that just like at home, there are a lot of things that we need and want, but if we don't have the appropriate resources for them and we overextend, that hits us in a compounded way going forward, unless there's some magical influx of income, which rarely, in my experience, happens happily. So we're contemplating spending really, just in layman's terms, beyond our means, and that builds in sustainability and some difficulties for the out years.
Well said.
Okay.
Okay. So are we?
I always know if Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Kamalo are nodding, I'm doing all right.
So are we done with the budget accounting? Can we move on to the next item?
Yeah, for today, yes. And then we move into the annual town meeting.
No, I really appreciate hearing from all the departments this way, because it puts it right in front of the public. We get to ask our questions.
I agree.
Okay, now we're on to the May 1st, 2023 annual town meeting warrant. Today is the last day to include articles into the warrant, I believe. Okay, so the ones we are still discussing would be voting to submit articles into the bylaws. There is the draft short-term rental bylaw, which we received more information about that via email, and people had also spoken about it. And then also there's the Wilson Street Solar, is that pilot agreement? We expect that can go forward?
In fact, based on information we received today, yes, this will proceed.
Okay. And the other one, the Altera, do we need to put a placeholder for that, or are we? Is it Alteros?
Yeah, the indications from Alteros was that they were now negotiating a lease on another property on South Street. And my question to the state is, what would be the process for getting that particular property associated with the current discussions?
Okay, because they'd already
to just
put it
go
into
through
the other property.
that cycle from the beginning.
So are we thinking we don't need to put a placeholder in for that?
I think we should for now.
We should put a placeholder in, because I didn't see it on the list here. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a TIF for
Alteros.
Alteros. Okay, and then I think we voted, those are the only three that we're considering right now, because we voted the other ones in, I believe, last time. Okay. So, do we all agree that we want to put in the pilot agreement for Wilson Street Solar and the TIF for Alteros? Or do we have questions about those? And if the Alteros thing doesn't go forward, we can always remove it later.
I don't have any questions, and I would vote to put those on the warrant.
Okay, and then I think we'll have more discussion.
I would support both of those.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion for those two, and then we'll discuss the short-term rental bylaw?
I move to submit the pilot agreement for the Wilson Street Solar Farm, Grasshopper Energy, and the Alteros TIF onto the town meeting warrant for 2023.
So,
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay, and so now we have the general bylaw amendment for the short-term rental bylaw, and we received more information about that in our packet. There was someone from Zach here earlier, too? She left, okay. Okay, all right, so, so do you guys, do you have any questions about that or thoughts?
Well, I kind of did a little nosing. I have a relative who has a lot of Airbnbs and doesn't run them this way, and he does very well. And I really am disturbed when I read this letter by the process that this person was able to go in and take a single-family home and make it into an apartment and do all this work on it without ever being caught or ever being brought before any of the boards in the town. I just did. Where were we? Where were the inspectors? Where were we?
Well, they didn't pull permits.
They did not pull a permit.
They were being sneaky.
Someone has to see that they're not really, that they're doing work that needed a permit, I guess. Yeah.
We have a lot of people out there around town, and I'm just surprised that this was able to happen. And considering, my nephew has a number of Airbnbs and expects to have a number more, then I think that maybe it is time for this bylaw.
Yeah, that is my, that's what I think as well, that it, just some reasonable
It's up to
guidelines.
the people of the
are gonna be
town. It's up to
operating-
town meeting.
If they're going to be operating it as a business, renting it out continuously on a short-term basis, I think there should be some rules and guidelines.
Yeah.
And I'd like the people to be able to vote on it at a town meeting and hear the pros and cons myself.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yep.
This strikes me as though it ought to be a zoning bylaw, and it's not. Is there a reason?
I think that's why the zoning person was here, but she left. So, were you at the meeting where they discussed it?
I watched a video some time ago. The thought, I'm trying to remember, the thought was that it's not regulation of it's not whether the use is allowed or not. It's the regulation of business use.
Because rentals are allowed, it's just not,
And
okay.
then if you're doing it in the zoning bylaw, then you're interacting with other bylaws that can't regulate ownership. And it was felt by those who discussed it, and I think town council that it's better as a general bylaw.
Okay.
was some time ago that I watched the video, so.
Well-
Someone comes back was here.
Truly more than I was able to do, so I appreciate that. So I always have a concern when we are reacting to a single incident with a bylaw. I guess I don't necessarily have an objection to the community weighing in, and I'm sensitive to the fact that it was a real issue in the neighborhood that it was an issue in. I am. And I guess that I'm also sensitive to the fact, Ms. Donahue, you mentioned that if they had not egregiously broken other laws, we wouldn't have had the ability to control what was happening, right? So as much as I'm not, we did hear from the building inspector, he doesn't support putting, or the assistant building inspector, he didn't support putting this forward. Given the fact that we, I don't know, I guess it is the way of the world. People are going to have Airbnbs, and it's becoming more and more common. It perhaps makes sense to let the town weigh in on it. Whether or not I sort of personally fully embrace solving a very localized problem this way, I'm still working on that for myself, but I won't stand in the way.
Yeah, through the chair, I think there are both sides to it, but obviously we want to make sure that our neighborhood is, peaceful and livable the way we want. We like it with the character that we want, and we want to hear, the neighbors and the residents' voice on this. So I'm all for putting it, in the town meeting. And in the meantime, if we can maybe collect some more information and thoughts about how we want to regulate it and the proposal that we have at hand. Obviously, the fine line we need to think about is not to over-regulate in a way that becomes operationally challenging for us as well, and but something that fits the purpose and makes it also in some ways within the regulatory guidelines manageable for the town and for the residents and for the people who are doing that or going to do that. So more information and more kind of thought together how we're going to handle it is going to be helpful.
Yeah, I think if we do put it into the warrant, I think we should definitely have a public hearing, a scheduled public hearing with advance notice, so both sides, if maybe the Airbnb owner would want to come speak as well, and then could just get that feedback too. Mm-hmm. And then I would like the public to be able to vote on it at town meeting. So would anyone like to make a motion to put the general bylaw amendment for short-term rentals into the warrant?
Yep. I make a motion that we allow the general bylaw amendment for short-term rental bylaw to be added to the town meeting warrant.
A second.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, and then, so I think that was it for a town meeting, or are there citizens petitions? I know I've heard of a couple.
They go on automatically. We don't have to vote those.
We don't have to vote them, but I guess I would be curious.
I am curious.
The public would be curious as well.
Yeah.
But did Connor just leave? No, here there he is.
Yeah.
Can you summarize the citizens petitions for us? Or I guess we could wait till the next meeting, we'll see them.
There's quite a few of them.
How many?
We have 6 certified citizens petitions right now. A couple of them are zoning based, so they'll have to go before the planning board for public hearings. One is regarding shooting at firing ranges at various times.
Oh boy, you know what? This is the good news, though. Everybody's coming to town.
Oh, yes.
They'll
all come. Yes.
There's one I can't recall right now. It was one of the earlier ones that we got, though. And then there's 2 regarding the Upper Charles Trail
I knew those were coming, or I had heard about those today. So
Yeah,
one
I
is
heard about
hours of shooting at gun ranges. Do you know what the zoning articles are?
One is to change a specific grouping of parcels into a new zone from agricultural, I believe, to something, what is it going to? It's from either agriculture or residential to, Elaine can answer the zoning ones better than I can, I'll be honest with you.
So one is to rezone the parcels where the Community Covenant Church is to a business zone.
Okay.
And one is to rezone a group of small parcels at the corner of Hayward Street and South Street from residential to commercial, I forget which district. It was owned by EMC and now it's been sold off. But several houses used to be before EMC located there and removed the homes.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
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 Okay, so that'll be an interesting time meeting then, I guess. And so next week we'll have a list, I guess, a draft sort of
And
board.
the shooting one would, it appears as though the intent is to require them to shoot indoors.
Oh, wait.
To require them to shoot indoors, not
Indoors.
Oh,
It's a
so
little-
not.
It's a little unclear from the language, but
Oh.
that's what it appears to be.
So it's not just hours of operation?
No, it's not hours. It doesn't actually say anything about times. It
I'm
just
sorry.
says manners of, and
Okay.
that's kind of putting it broadly even then. It's kind of vague and a bit aspirational, but it does outline what these folks wanted to get across, and they got
Yep.
the number of signatures, so.
Yep.
Obviously, one of the things that's a really great benefit about this process in Hopkinton versus a lot of other communities is that once they've met that threshold, the town tries to help them to get it to something that's at least presentable to town meeting so that we can all make an educated decision when it gets to that point.
I actually, now that you say that, if you don't mind my jumping in, I really appreciate that because, and this is a long time ago, but citizens petitions did not get that kind of support, and possibly, you're probably right, it happens in other towns and so forth. And then it just frustrates everybody. People don't get, the process is intended for people to get their hearing at town meeting, their opportunity for the vote. And if we don't support individual citizens who are doing these petitions, it just frustrates everybody across the board, and it makes already difficult conversations more challenging and so forth. So I appreciate very much that the town leans in to help shape them so that they can really be acted upon as they should be.
And of course, the other issue that comes into play there too is if you get an article that's presented that doesn't have the proper language to actually even be acceptable, then
Even if it passes, it may not be able to go in.
yeah, if the town doesn't give the opportunity to try to make sure that something is presented to town meeting that could possibly be voted on, then it makes it more difficult for both those people, but also if it passes, then
You're struggling with
you're
it.
struggling with something that might not work at all. It might not even do what it's intended to do.
Yeah.
And Connor, when are we going to have the full verbiage of all these warrants?
So that has to go to town council to get the legalese portions of that done.
We usually get a listing of what all the broad subjects of each one is, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when it's intended to have a rough draft before the board, but as at this point, all of the citizens petitions that we've received have got the signatures necessary to be on the warrant.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Are we done with
We have
town
to,
meeting
thank
warrant? Carve all our items? Okay. All right.
Chair, I
Yep.
had one clarifying question for Norman.
Yeah.
I wish Tim was here too. During our last budget discussion, we were short by $1 million and change on the overall budget,
1.1 million?
1.1 million.
Yes.
And Tim mentioned he is exploring some options. When do you think we can hear about those and assess those?
We would like the process that the board is going through now to inform those choices. As we have said, we can proceed and balance the budget. However, we would like to be informed by these discussions that the board is having with members of the public as well as the proponents of the budgets.
Absolutely. I think this is the exercise we need to thoroughly do for our understanding, for the public's understanding, for how the budget looks like, how it's, what we are going through and what's coming in front of us in the coming years. But in parallel, I am just cognizant of the timeline and making sure that we, and I know you and team are committed to balancing the budget and providing all the analysis. I'm just thinking, given the time, if we can time to time look at those, that could help us progress as well. I don't want to see it at the, towards the end, and then if we have to revise or we may not have enough time, just being cognizant of that.
Yes, we can report back to the board on that. The simple guideline is the development of the budget is open until the time when we need to have the appropriations committee. Yes, send it to the appropriations committee. However, what we also shared with the board is the options that are available now to balance the budget may not be compliant with our policies, and that's why we want this to be a collective decision.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to send it to appropriation on March 14th, it looks like. And we're going to have 2 more meetings like this where the departments come and give us their budgets?
Correct, and we will...
So the next 2 meetings, I guess?
Yes.
Do we know who's coming to the 7th, February 7th?
We only know one right now is DPW.
DPW, okay.
And this, do we know when the school is coming?
Well, they already came, right?
Do they, are we all done with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless if the board has any specific questions for the schools.
No, I just want to, okay. All right. So we only know one for next meeting is DPW.
Okay, just have to pick which others. Okay.
Yes, there will be more.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's good. So maybe next meeting, we can plan to look at some of the options you are looking at and some of the curving that we are thinking.
I think Norman wants us to see all the presentations before he does it. Is that, if I'm...
Is that what
that's the thinking. Again, the point being, we went through the list of the adjustments we made to get us down to 1.1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the options that are left are twofold. We can dip into free cash.
Mm-hmm.
One-time
or
money.
use any other one-time funding sources. And then 2, we're praying that the other
maybe
sources
revenue
of
will
funding,
go up or
such
other
as,
things. Yeah.
such as state aid, provide more than what we've anticipated.
Right.
So we're very limited now in terms of what we could do.
So we should, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
So we should expect on the 14th to have a summary packet and the discussion about the whole thing? Is that what we're aiming for?
Yes, it will be helpful to do.
Right. No, thank you. And again, praying is always healthy, but is good, but it may not be that option. So we want to, just start that discussion early on. I think free cash is certainly one option, and there are a couple others I'm sure you and Tim will do your magic and come up with. So I'd love to hear and see how they look like.
Okay.
If I could just say one more thing, just casting it out to the public, that while all of this is going on, it's really helpful and important for people to engage with this conversation and understand the implications of the decisions that we're going to be making this year on not just this year, but the out years. So please take the time to get informed and get involved and share your thoughts.
Okay.
And go to town meeting.
Yes, and go
Definitely,
to town meeting.
well, everyone's coming to town meeting this year. That's
changes. Okay, for town manager report then, we have...
Yes, Main Street Corridor Project, we have no new developments this past week. PFAS, we sent out the public notification triggered by the December 2022 readings. And the MWRA Southborough Interconnection Project, we had a meeting with our counterparts from Southborough yesterday. It was a productive meeting. Coming out of that meeting, is some understanding of the terms that could go into an intermunicipal agreement. We are now drafting that intermunicipal agreement. It will incorporate some suggestions that are coming from Southborough, some suggestions coming from our meeting yesterday, and some suggestions that may come from our further review of some of the issues that Southborough brought forth yesterday. For example, there was a discussion regarding the termination clause as well as the term of the agreement.
So we're just moving forward with that and working on that. Okay.
The discussions are proceeding, and one thing that was very clear from the discussions is that Southborough will take this project and the IMA to their annual town meeting, March 25th.
Okay. Right, which is
Thank you, that's good progress. And generally, Norman, walk me through again, what is the timeline we're looking at to complete the design? That is our goal and budget we already have, right?
Yes, we have the bulk of the budget. The consultant has told us that they may need all the way up to perhaps mid next year to do the design. In the meantime, we will also, depending on what happens in Southborough town meeting, we'll also begin the permitting process with the state. There are many discussions that we have to hold up front. And following that, there's an estimation that if construction proceeds, we will need about perhaps 18 to 24 months to do that work.
And
Thank you.
the construction funds will be another town meeting vote perhaps next year?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a big one.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that's up.
Oh, and then I think we should reiterate, I think we brought this up last time too, but what is, because people got the notice in the mail again, and I'm hearing questions about it, because people don't always follow the news. But, so, for right now, if you're in a sensitive subgroup, you can get a bottled water rebate, and there's still a form on the town website. The filtration system is coming along, that we're hoping to get that done in spring 2023, is that right?
Correct.
And that would tide us over until we can do this MWRA connection, which will take a couple more years. Right? So people think we're not doing anything because they keep getting these notices, so I just want to make sure.
No, there's a lot going on in
Yeah,
town.
I know, people.
Short term, long term, right. Good, glad you brought it up, yeah.
Yeah, but you're working hard, and everyone, and the DPW now.
Yeah, again, as we reported specifically, we've bid out and identified the contractor to install the vessels.
Great.
We are also discussing internally how we are going to pay for the difference between what we appropriate at town meeting
And
the
inflation.
new- yes, and the new cost of the project.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and is that it for the town manager's report then? Any additional questions on that?
That's it for now.
Okay.
I just wanted to say something through the chair. It was on Facebook that the Marathon Fund Committee has 6 $1,500 scholarships to give out this year, and that is important, but I think that it's important for Hopkinton High School kids. It's also important to know that there are available for Hopkinton students that go to Keith Tech or Norfolk Aggie also, if they apply.
So people who are interested should apply? That would be-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, any future agenda items not covered yet? Or-
Well, one question I had, and it's probably not an agenda item. The parking lot, is it gonna be open?
Oh, yeah, there was an announcement about it, yeah.
Yeah, I was looking around for Dave.
I think he left.
For me, it's now perhaps a matter of weeks. We're finalizing the conveyance. Why this hasn't happened so far is twofold. We had the opportunity to add the charging stations. And those charging stations now need to be reflected in the easements or the parcel that is coming to the town.
So you have to redo the paperwork.
Exactly. We want them to be publicly owned. The second piece has to do with powering up the lights. We have identified that the lights that will be owned by the town, and Eversource would not agree to power those lights through the work order that they established for the remainder of the parcel. So now we have had to apply separately for those lights.
Okay. Does it need to go back to a town meeting vote for the easements, or
No.
No, just it's going to change the word, you're going to change the
Yes.
wording of it.
Yeah.
So instead of weeks, it could be a couple of months now? Instead of weeks?
It's weeks.
It's weeks?
It's weeks, yeah,
Might
the
not be
emails,
like-
yeah, I believe, yes, I believe the email, the last email I saw is that the lawyers have agreed on the language.
Okay.
It's simply now having the stakeholders all sign off on the dotted line. And also going through Eversource.
That'll be
And
nice. I came for
Eversource.
lunch today and it was very difficult finding a parking.
Oh, so you're looking forward to it, okay.
Looking forward to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else? No?
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 8:10, that's not too bad.
There you go.